Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell. You'll get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And when I'm not asking Bruce, hey, how big was Batista's? Well, you know. One of the things I like to do is help people save money. And if you're watching this video right now and you're in a 30-year loan, man, you're overpaying your single biggest bill and you may not even realize it. I want you to do a little experiment for me. Take your calculator out, multiply your monthly house payment by 360 payments. That's how many payments there are in a 30-year loan. That big scary number, that's your total of payments. You're looking at that number? You know you can do better. Keep more of your own money right now and go to savewithconrad.com. Or maybe you've got credit card debt. Man, it's not a matter of if I can save you money with that. Your average interest rate on a credit card is more than 20%. And by the way, all the interest you pay on those credit cards, it's not tax deductible. Whereas the mortgage interest, well, that is tax deductible. So if you owe this debt, it's up to you how to pay it back. Doesn't it make sense to get the cheapest rate possible and the greatest tax deduction possible? Find out how much money you can save right now for free at savewithconrad.com. You don't need perfect credit. Even scores in the 500s can be approved, and it's no cost out of pocket. But maybe best of all, we're licensed in more than 40 states. We can help more families than ever before. But how much can we save you? Find out right now for free with a quick quote from savewithconrad.com. Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to Grillin' JR with the voice of wrestling, Mr. Jim Ross. Jim, how are you, man?
Good, Connie. You look like a college professor this morning, those glasses on.
Man, I needed it. All of a sudden, my eyes needed a rest from the contacts. So today's my last day in glasses. I'll go back to contacts. So I won't be 4 eyes next week. I'll look pretty again for you, Jim.
Oh, yeah. You're a pretty boy.
With these cheeks. Oh, God. These cheeks.
Exactly. Hey, you can't shortchange the cheeks, brother. You got double digits, so like me, you know, what the hell? But good. I'm glad you're having your things are good. I know Ad-Free Network's busy. I see all the projects. My God, it's amazing the work you guys put out. I'm really proud to be affiliated with it.
We've had a lot of fun, man. Not only do you get all of our shows here early and ad free, but the bonus content we come up with, like we recently just had FTR come on and break down their one-on-one match from Dynamite a few weeks ago and do a little Q&A with fans. And man, it's the ultimate experience if you're a wrestling fan and you want to have interaction with some of your favorite Hall of Famers or stars from the day. And we got your old radio shows and some old hotlines and just a lot of fun stuff. And
it's affordable.
It is, man. It starts at $9 a month.
Yeah, and it's not available. $9.
$9 a month is what gets you in. Come on.
That's not even 2 Starbucks.
Yeah.
Well, all I know is that you're right on point about if you're a fan, you're going to love it. That's not hyperbole. I believe that to be very true. But the other thing is that you can kind of create your own menu.
Yes.
And shop. You know, you might be more interested in you know, Eric Bischoff's podcast than ours or another. So what? That's the beauty of this thing. So I believe it's if you're a fan, you got to do it, man. You just got to. It's just too handy, and my God, it travels with you. You know, there's all kinds of positives of this thing. So I heartily, is that a word?
Yeah.
Heartily. Well,
yeah.
Maybe I thought I just made another one up. That way it showed my ignorance even more profound. Yeah, I just think it's a way to go. $9 a month. You got to be kidding me. That shouldn't even be part of the decision.
Check it out.
Conrad, if you can't afford $9, we need to talk about other issues in your life. You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying. You're saying adfreeshows.com is a great value and you should check it out. And we're glad that you're checking out our podcast today because, Jim, I teased this last week, but we're talking about a show I actually attended.
Yeah.
20 years ago this week was Judgment Day 02. And this is the first official World Wrestling Entertainment pay-per-view after the name change. There's just so much to unpack here. I love the idea that we're getting the moment to talk about the name change. Bruce and I talked about it a little bit in years past, but man, the WWF was so branded. You know, these days, if you and I were to go to lunch, somebody might say around us, I mean, I think we'd probably both order water, but somebody might say, "Hey, I'll have a Coke, please." And the server might say, "We serve Pepsi." And the
Right.
guy who placed the order might say, "Oh, that's even better." And it's almost like, well, if you wanted Pepsi, why did you say Coke? Because Coke is the brand. If you and I were to get a nick or cut today, we might say, "Oh man, I need to get a Band-Aid." Well, that's a brand. It's a bandage that we really need, but a brand is Band-Aid, and
Yeah.
a Kleenex is a brand. The WWF, if you were to tell somebody, "Oh yeah, my son's training for wrestling," you mean that WWF stuff? That's what they would say. And now all of a sudden, we got to get the F out. And I can't believe, after all of the incredible legal battles that Mr. McDivitt has won over the years, he takes a L to the Panda. I didn't see it coming.
I know why that happened. If you want to know,
Let's do.
yeah, the court was in England. McDivitt didn't have the McDivitt stroke in England that he would have in Pittsburgh or New York City, like he has had great success, as you mentioned. I think he's the best lawyer I've ever even met.
Yeah.
He's just amazing. But because all the hearings were England based, you know, those Panda dudes that's an English company. And people stood up for taking care of the animals and in their own country. And so these powerful foreigners coming over and disrupting things. So I think that was the deal. The home field advantage had a distinct advantage in that particular case. And I'm not just defending Jerry, but I know how good Jerry is. But he never got a foothold in that thing because of, you know, it's hard to sway a very, you know, an audience that's very prejudiced.
Sure.
So it's kind of ironic in the court system. We got bit in the ass there by the prejudice. So anyway, it was an interesting time. I remember, I think it was the first time we had a producer. She's great too, Jennifer Good. One of my favorite people to ever work with, and she's really smart and got a little family growing right up there. I think she lives in Vermont or somewhere in that neighborhood, but she's no longer with WWE. But she was a player, and the respect of getting things done. So she says, we come to do our first on camera, and guess what I'm wearing? An old shirt with WWF on. That didn't go over very well in the home office. And unfortunately, she got her ass chewed because it was her responsibility to make sure that we were all buttoned up, so to speak. So I had a WWF shirt on. I don't know if I had it on this show or one before this. I'm not sure. If this is the first WWE show we did, then I had the wrong shirt on this show. And it didn't go over well. I wasn't paying attention. God damn it, JR. Son of a bitch. Pay attention. Okay, I will. Thanks for the moving positive words prior to going on the air so I could really have some momentum to build on. So anyway, that was that deal. It was a cluster. It was a cluster. And I don't know how many millions of dollars WWE spent on that transition. It was scary numbers. I mean, we're talking, it's not $1 million, don't even touch it. So it was a lot of cash, everybody. But anyway, it was an interesting time to be in the wrestling business. And unlike some of those shows we did just recently on the WCW stuff, it actually had interest. There's something to talk about. So anyhow, it'll be fun to talk about this today. I like that show.
This is a fun show. We're coming off Backlash, which we covered last month. And it's like what's old is new again. Back in 1991, coming off the Survivor Series in the WWF, we ran an experiment called Tuesday in Texas. And the story was Hulk Hogan was defeated rather, by the Undertaker, with a little help from Ric Flair, and Taker's first ever title shot and title run here because he wins the belt.
Yeah.
So because it was a quote unquote screw job, the Tuesday pay-per-view is built off the finish, and it's going to end up, of course, with Hogan regaining the title from Taker after interference from Paul Bearer. and the title winds up being held up, and the result is an incredible Royal Rumble 1992. And here we are 10 years later. And who's on top of the cards again? Well, The Undertaker, Ric Flair, and Hulk Hogan. This is interesting because, you know, the WWF, as soon as Hogan was out of here, started marketing the new generation. And we started to go younger from, say, 93 forward. And then by the late 90s, we were all about attitude with Stone Cold and DX and The Rock. But now we find ourselves in 02 trying to figure out, okay, what now? And it's almost like we just press rewind. And when you guys were at the height of the Monday Night Wars, you couldn't help, not you, but the company couldn't help but say, oh, you don't want to watch that age in a cage, talking about guys like Roddy Piper and Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair. And now, well, things have changed. They're a part of us now. So we're going to promote them. It's the winds of change are here in the company, are they not?
Yeah, I think it speaks volumes from the standpoint that, you know, I preach it all the time. Every promoter's obligation is to continue to develop new talent that can headline cards. So in other words, it's incumbent on every wrestling guy to continue to seek out and develop and discover, if you will, the new talents. Wrestling fans are no different than any other consumer. Why people think we live on Uranus or someplace and we just come down and watch wrestling, then we go back to Uranus. We're just regular guys like you, me. We're just regular people. We just have to be have some interesting vocations or sidelines or whatever. So, man, I just know they want new, and so this speaks volumes in the standpoint that none of these guys are new. Are they great stars? Hell yeah, of
course.
But we may have ridden that horse too long. I think we did.
Well, let's talk about, you know, the real issue here. You know, we just had WrestleMania 18 where Hulk Hogan and The Rock just absolutely tore it up, and people voted with their mouths. They were so loud and so supportive of Hulk Hogan that we had to bring back the old red and yellow. And so now this is almost like the old school comeback tour. And it's been said over the years by Bruce Pritchard and others that nostalgia is great once.
Yep.
But he doesn't think that you can do it over and over and over. Is that sort of your same rule of thumb that it's cool once, but maybe not on a regular basis?
Look, first of all, reintroducing Conrad, the let's say the Attitude Era, for example, in some form. Well, that's not new either.
Right.
That's nostalgic. And so consequently, we're swimming upstream again. But it's so let's give it the benefit of the doubt and say it's new. The first time it's introduced. So okay, some people that had different birthdays and they're younger and they didn't see all this stuff. I get that, but it's not new the second time. So you got one shot at that deal. So Bruce, I believe Bruce is right. Finally, about something. No kidding. You know, it's just a hard sell for me to say you can build the whole thing back on nostalgia, because I don't think you can, but I think you can get by with a nostalgia feel show once. After that, you're lazy. It's lazy booking, in my opinion.
Well, Jim, I don't mind telling you, we've got some nostalgia that we're planning to book at the end of July. I don't know that you heard the news, but Starcast is back. It's going to happen SummerSlam weekend in Nashville. We're going to have the roast of Ric Flair on Friday night. And then on Sunday night, Jim Crockett Promotions is going to return for one night only. It's going to look and sound and look just like it did in the heyday of the mid 80s. And Ric Flair is going to have his last match. So I hope you'll forgive me, but I too am going to promote nostalgia one time.
That's it. And it's a great idea. You put together a great package. You know, the opportunity, and I know fans are historically skeptical when somebody says blank is going to have his or her last match.
Right.
Sometimes that could be an eye roller. But I think that's just an absolutely phenomenal package. The roast will be, I'm sure, hilarious. And, I watch, I don't know about you. When I have some spare time, sometimes when I go on Facebook or something and just start to look, see what's hot, what people are talking about. I love that. I love those roasts. You can tell they got great writers.
Oh yeah.
And that's the key, I think. So, that'd be great. Roasting Ric Flair that's a hell of an opportunity. And I think people are going to love it.
Should be a star-studded affair. Rick's got a Rolodex like nobody else. So, he's pretty fired up. We're going to have a house full of celebrities, and we've already got more than half a dozen writers working on it. So it should be a good time. Tickets or bracelets rather for the event, all of the Starcast events go on sale this Friday at noon. So as you're listening to this, tomorrow at noon, starcast.com.
Yeah.
If you can't make plans to join us, we will stream everything on Fight and Jim Crockett Promotions as a one-off one last time. Check
pretty cool. Out. Yeah, pretty cool. I got there, when I got to Crockett in the mid 80s, 86, 87, something like that. I don't know what it was. Fans have the better recall of that than I. But too many sleeps since I started until today. But man, I think that's just going to be huge. There's going to be a ton of fans in town.
Yep.
So you got your pool of potential customers, shall we say?
Yep.
Fans increases. You got an attraction that has not been replicated anywhere. The fact that Nate is going to get back in the ring in tights and wrestle is something that I would never have predicted you could pull off. So I would congratulate you on that deal. And the other good thing about that is that Nate's just not going to be wrestling a cappella. So that others will be in the ring with it to experience this situation. And if you want to see a twinkle in talent's eyes, and I don't even know I don't know if I don't know, I can't tell. So I love that. Inadvertently. Oh yeah, that's going to be, I didn't know that. So you'll see guys in the ring on this last presentation for the Nate with twinkles in their eye, because this is a big deal to them too. Imagine being a wrestler and growing up and idolizing Flair or just admiring his work over the time. And now you actually get to be in a match with him, and it's his last match.
It's a pretty big deal. That's
a hell of a big deal.
Yeah.
Hell of a big deal. So I think you got a hit there. And folks, again, the tickets are, here's the thing I know. I do know this. You have to have a ticket to attend.
Yes. And
those tickets that you seek become available on this Friday, tomorrow, as you're listening to this on Thursday, but Friday. And good weekend to get your tickets, get all set up. So I'm proud of you, man. That's a hell of an attraction, and it should do great. It really should.
We're excited, man. Hope that you guys will join us, and we're going to start announcing some more talent. By the time you listen to this, you probably already know more than I can share now, but it is going to be a star-studded affair. Check it out, starcast.com. Bracelets go on sale tomorrow at noon. And let's jump back into Judgment Day here. The story with Flair and Steve Austin is something that was kind of fresh because, well, Flair is the heel owner and Austin is the rebellious face. So it's sort of what we did before with Vince McMahon, but now it's with Ric Flair. But it does feel like Austin was at his best when he had something to rebel against. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, but I think that we saddled up Nate's a little early.
Mm-hmm.
He's followed in McMahon's run as the heel figure.
Yep.
And, I said this before, and I believe I'm not kissing Vince's ass. I've done that plenty in my career, so I'm not doing it today. But, Vince is just a hard act to follow. He was really good in that role. And I said, as I was about to say, he was the best heel in the Attitude Era, period. And we had great heels, but he was the best, in my opinion. I know he elicited more passion and more emotion from the live audience that bled right over into your television set. This is some really good stuff there. So I think on this particular situation, if I were booking it and I had a chance to get the eraser out, the most powerful weapon in all of wrestling, the eraser, and move this schedule a little bit, I think it would not have been as burdensome on Nate as I perceived that it was. Because again, you're falling at one act to the other, and so now it's, you know, to me it was just a little tight fit. I'm not knocking Rick's work at all. It's not, I'm just saying timing wise, he didn't book the timing of it.
Right.
So anyway, so we're talking about new. Is the heel authority figure and Stone Cold new?
No, but it is a new wrinkle of a proven commodity, I guess is what I was getting at.
Yeah.
Because, you know, while the character work of Vince McMahon probably couldn't be paralleled, the in-ring work is now more of a possibility than it was with Steve. And the result is a pretty good rating. The day after Backlash, Raw did a 4.8 there in St. Louis. And the main thing on the show was Big Show turning heel again and joining the NWO. He's going to turn on Austin in their tag match against Scott Hall and X-Pac. And they're also hinting at the quote unquote owner of Raw turning heel too, because he keeps repeating that he never saw Austin's foot on the rope the previous night at the pay-per-view when Undertaker pinned him. But Stone Cold and of course the crowd, they didn't buy it. Let's talk about Big Show. It feels a little silly because at this point, I think this is his 7th turn in 3 years in the company. And of course, as we know, there's many more to come, but it's almost become a joke about how often he turned. Was WWE aware at the time that they were doing it too much, or was it not even something that they were just looking week to week and never really looked back to think about it? Because I've heard that with the streak. I'm not saying this to be funny, but I think I've heard the story that Michael Hayes said right before WrestleMania 18, hey, did you know Undertaker's never lost at WrestleMania? And somebody had to look it up and said, well, that can't be true. No, he's 9-0. So when he beat Flair, okay, now he's 10-0. And he started talking about it for the first time. I wonder, did these turns not even resonate with the company? Did they not realize, hey, shit, didn't we just do this?
I think it apparently not. Apparently didn't resonate very much, very soundly. It's a head scratcher. It really is a head scratcher. And what it did was it devalued Big Show, where you got an attraction guy. And again, a key term, and our audience should understand my logic and your logic about what an attraction guy is. An attraction wrestler is Andre. It's the McGuire twins. It used to be when I was just getting into wrestling in the 70s, the lady wrestlers come in once a year type thing. It's an attraction. You're not going to see them next week.
Right.
And what we did right off the bat was overexpose Big Show. So instead of keeping him special and keeping his persona fresh, we just shoved it right down their throat. And that's a lot to swallow. That's a lot to swallow, 400 plus pounds. And it had to be frustrating for Big Show. I can't see how it couldn't be.
Let's talk a little bit about something they did off the air in St. Louis, because this is kind of fun to look back and think about. They do an Austin Hogan test market deal, I guess you'd say, in St. Louis. Once the show goes off the air, Hogan does a run in to help Austin clean house on Big Show, X-Pac, and Scott Hall. And then for his trouble, Austin gives Hogan a stunner, which gets almost a mixed response. But when Hogan recovers, they do a stare down, but wind up drinking beer in the ring together to celebrate. And Hogan even leg drops a beer can, which is pretty fun, especially for, something to send the crowd home happy with.
Yeah.
But did you think this was, hey, let's just see how the audience reacts? Or was it not that serious and it was just, hey, let's send them home happy?
Well, I think we want to send them home happy no matter what. However, I think it was smart marketing to do a little test drive. And let's feel the audience. Let's see how they're going to respond to what we're going to present them. So I think it was very timely, and it made sense to do it. It was dark. It was after the show was over. We had a good house there that night, as I recall. So I think it was smart marketing, because we didn't know. We had no idea how Hogan would be perceived. We didn't want to devalue Hogan. We're just bringing him back to kind of, rehook the jumper cables.
Right.
But so I thought it was a smart way of doing some market research.
We've actually got a clip of that. Stay tuned here and we'll track it. thinking here, Jim, the crowd is just going absolutely bananas for this beer bash with Hulk Hogan and Stone Cold. I mean, realistically, did you think there was ever any way we were going to see a feud or a pay-per-view or something like that with these guys? Because I think when folks think about the success of the company, they certainly think about Hogan being the man of the 80s, Austin being the man of the 90s, and I don't know, perhaps John Cena as the man of the 2000s. But it feels like a dream match of sorts where it should have happened. It just didn't.
Yeah, right. I never had great confidence that match would ever happen, but they'd have a long enough program and storyline to crescendo it and peak it at a pay-per-view. And we were not in that mode at that point in time. You know, if you're going to rebuild a legend like Hogan, and I use that rebuild just because I don't have a better term in my head.
Right.
But you know, God dang, man, he's, you don't want to relaunch him simply with a plan in mind to beat him. You know, you're going to beat him sooner than later because everybody loses at some point in time. And it's imperative for the storytelling to have both sides of the issue, a little jeopardy and all these things. But Steve never thought, or at least that's my opinion, I might be wrong, Steve did not tell me this, that he had a lot of chemistry with Hogan in the ring chemistry. And the one thing about Austin is that he sensed who he could have the better matches with. He had a feel for it. And if it was somebody that he didn't think that he could perform up to the standards, he would just lobby to not participate in that particular storyline. And that's really smart because he wanted the fans to get what they expected. And there's some talents that we're talking about here, that including Hulk, that I don't think Steve felt like he could have the matches that he wanted to have. And this is not a knock on Hogan. Well, it's just that styles are different and they just clashed a little bit. So, but I thought on that thing in St. Louis, it's obvious that the fans realized they were seeing something special. My deal there would have been, I'll put Hogan and Austin together as the tag teams. It'll be easier on Hogan, easier on Steve. You get to expose the opposition, two more guys on the other side. To me, that would have been a safe route to take. But I never had any. I didn't say. Well, I didn't miss the opportunity to see Hogan and Austin one-on-one because I didn't think it was possible. Knowing how both guys felt about match quality and their limitations through injuries and age at that point in their careers.
Speaking of careers, Randy Orton's going to get his kicked off in a big way. April 25th, Peoria, Illinois. He's going to make his WWF television debut and he's going to get a win over Hardcore Holly. Did you think Randy was ready for the big time? I mean, we remember you used to call Rocky Maivia a blue chipper.
Yeah.
I almost felt like it was too much too soon for him. And now here's a very similar situation. And here's a guy who athletically checks all the boxes. It looks like he's got charisma. He's a handsome, good looking dude. He is a multi-generation wrestler, just like The Rock. So the heritage is there.
Right.
But there has to be some concern of, now we know it worked out just fine for The Rock, but at least at first that launch process, you know, it could go one of two ways with some of these generational talents. It could be David Sammartino. You don't want that. You want it to be more like The Rock, but even The Rock didn't have a smooth start. Was there a concern like that for Randy at the time?
I think we learned from The Rock's presentation that not to do, be aware of force feeding.
Yeah.
Be aware of overexposure. But I never had a doubt in my mind that Randy Orton was not going to be a big star. I saw him and I got to know him a little bit, and that was challenging because he didn't trust. He came from a wrestling family, and if you're a third generation star in pro wrestling like Randy is, then you know one of the things you hear about at the dinner table is I got screwed in that payoff, or things that would add to your overall distrust of the office.
Yeah.
So, but I thought if we didn't overexpose Randy, he was going to be big time player. Randy's biggest, or I should say, not only, but the biggest challenge he had was just socially, trying to stay sane on the road. He was young and handsome, and women were beating his door down, and he knew he was good. He's not a dummy. He knows what's good and what isn't. So I always had great confidence, Conrad, that we were going to we had something in him. And to be honest with you, when I had a meeting with Vince about some new guys I'd signed, he didn't even know what Randy looked like.
Wow.
And so he would, we were talking about that, and I mentioned that Randy got dishonorably discharged from the Marines, and that almost killed the deal. And I said, well, Vince, you said all along, and I'll use your example on a lot of decisions I make, that everybody can make a mistake, because I said, you told me about your mistakes, the military school and all these other things he had to endure to straighten up and or grow up. So I think that I said he deserves a second chance. I said if he's going to be a player, I'm just telling you. It's the same thing I told him when I came back from scouting John Cena. You don't have to be a savant or this genius with visions and all these other grandiose things. Common sense will take you to where you want to go. And the only thing we had to make sure about Randy was, hey, you can't party. So I told Brett Favre one time in Atlanta, sitting there drinking with Bill Fralick. I said, you can't drink all the Crown Royal in Atlanta, kid. And he was sure trying back before he stopped drinking. So that's the deal with Randy. How much partying can you do? And, we talked to Ric Flair earlier, and, a lot of guys looked at Flair, idolized him. He was a role model. Yeah. And that included the partying. So it was interesting, but yeah, I never had a lack of confidence, and I don't to this day. It's just been amazing to me that Randy has continued to elevate and refine his game. It's not a matter of elevating to the point where you're going to add more things. He's going to start doing tope suicidas and every other, all that shit, Here's the funny thing about a tope suicida. Have you ever seen it beat anybody?
No.
Interesting. I haven't either. It's just fought.
But it doesn't mean it's not fun to watch.
I'm not saying it's not fun to watch, but I don't need to see 3 or 4 of them a night.
Yeah, I'm not arguing that. I do want to talk about Jericho defeating Triple H in the main event, thanks to the Undertaker, which means now Y2J is going to get a title shot versus Hogan. The trouble is SmackDown. On April 25th, the show, with heavy competition, does a 3.4 rating, which is a tie for the all-time record non-holiday low for the show. And it's not headed in the right direction. The previous record was 4.12, and it was set 2 weeks earlier. So it looks like SmackDown is on a downward trend. Do you think that is more a statement about SmackDown's presentation, SmackDown's creative, or perhaps is it just a sign that the whole brand extension isn't working?
Well, I don't want to indict the whole brand extension, because my opinion on it. I liked it if it stayed separate, that stayed exclusive. But when you're hip hopping back and forth, and who's on this show and who's mad at who, and what happened last time, and all those things, it makes it hard to follow. So I don't know. I don't think it was a brand extension. I just think we didn't have over talent on that show that were involved in compelling storylines. Simply, we were not providing the television viewer and the wrestling fan at that particular time on SmackDown what they wanted to see.
The Observer would say that Lita was injured filming the show Dark Angel. She apparently herniated a disc along with 3 cracks in her C6 and C7 vertebrae. So now she's in a hospital in St. Louis before Raw because she's just in so much pain. She's going to see Dr. Youngblood the next day, who immediately recommends surgery, which was scheduled just a handful of days later.
Yeah.
She'll be out 6 to 9 months. Allegedly, the injuries occurred during practice for her fight sequence the weekend before filming. And while filming the show itself, it was noticeable she was in pain because her posture was hunched over. She's wincing and frowning. This is less than ideal. I mean, you love for your folks to have outside opportunities. That's good for everybody. But man, when somebody gets hurt and now you've got to reshuffle the deck, this is a major blow, especially when you're a big time talent like Lita.
Yeah, tell me about the reshuffling the deck. God almighty. It's like dominoes falling. You can't tip over one domino and it be in silence. Because if it's near where it can touch another domino, you got more noise. You got more things falling.
Yeah.
They have to be addressed. You got to cut it off somewhere. How do we get out of this deal? But it was a shame, her. And that was the whole deal, the additional exposure. You hope that somebody gets an additional exposure on a different television set, and it will be good for everybody. But boy, this is just disaster, absolute disaster. To lose her for what it was, 6 to 9 months and she was just kind of getting there.
Yeah.
I've always been a big fan of Lita's, and I think she's at times might even be considered, even though she's in the Hall of Fame. Sometimes I don't think that during her run, she was totally appreciated.
Totally agree.
Yeah. And kind of overlooked a little bit. So, but it was a heartbreaking thing to have to, get that news. You had to get the old eraser out, Conrad, get back to work.
Lots more of those eraser moments coming because Kane's going to be out 3 to 4 months after surgery on April 16th. This one's with Dr. James Andrews, who I guess you guys are keeping pretty busy here. He suffered a bicep tear while training 2 days prior on April 14th. And just the litany of injuries the company's going through around this time. I mean, it's hard this is the same core group you've had running hard since 97. I guess eventually these injuries have to catch up with you, but from a personnel standpoint and from a creative standpoint, it's not as if, as you compared them with dominoes earlier, you just pull one out and just plug another in. That doesn't work that way. No. When one guy moves out of this program, well, it affects everything else. And it just feels like the injury bug has definitely bit the company here.
Yeah. And it's not like football or something where your left tackle gets hurt, so you're replacing with another left tackle.
Right.
It's different. This, you're talking about personalities, show business, and presentation, and all those things. So, and Glenn was another one. He was an Iron Man. Still the mayor of Knox County, Tennessee. I think he's running for re-election. And, I've never hired a guy that was more honorable, honest, and had as much integrity as Glenn Jacobs. He was top of the list. You always knew he was going to be on time. You always knew he was going to give a great effort. He didn't get boo-boo face when he had to do a job. Just ideal teammate. I loved him in the locker room. And that story of me and him goes back a long way as far as, where we met, and what I saw in him, and all those things. How do you miss on a guy that's 6'8" that played college basketball and football?
Right.
He's an athlete.
Right.
So that hurt us, because guys like him have an impact on not only in the ring on their matches, Conrad, but on the locker room itself. He was a confidant to a lot of guys. He helped a lot of young talents. So that was another blow, no doubt about that. Our luck at this point was not real good.
So there's negotiations going on regarding a contract buyout for Goldberg, and Meltzer would say he doesn't know how serious they are and that they've taken place on and off for the past year, but ultimately the company never came through with enough money to get Bill to commit. The last time they were at any kind of semi-serious level which was early in the year, Hogan was trying to broker a deal, which would have had him come in with Goldberg as opposed to Hall and Nash. Do you remember these conversations with Goldberg in this era? What was that like, trying to get him to come over?
Well, he has the same age that I have. We both have the same age now, Barry Bloom. So Barry didn't disclose delicate information to me, but I was negotiating with him.
Right.
And it comes down to this, Connie. The money wasn't there that they felt compelled to request. It was a lot of money. And the guy didn't have a track record in WWE. He hadn't, I've known Bill Goldberg since he was a high school defensive tackle at Tulsa Edison High School. That's where I met him. I challenge anybody else in the wrestling business, go back that far, the talent they signed. But he was a beast then. He's a beast now. So I think, he was just the money. I wish I could give you a better, more exotic or more sexy story in my mind. However, I tell you the facts. As best I recall, the only thing that kept us from getting this deal done was the money.
Larry Zbyszko filed 3 separate lawsuits on April 19th, all about the money. He did it in federal court in Atlanta against Vince McMahon, WWFE, and Chris Irvine, aka Chris Jericho, for his usage of the term living legend in describing Jericho. Whistler trademarked the name for use in wrestling, and his lawyers several weeks back sent a cease and desist letter to the company. After the letter, they continued to use the phrase on TV. Titan had no comment on the suit. It's funny because Titan Sports originally trademarked living legend in the 80s for Bruno Sammartino. And when Bruno quit the promotion, Linda actually told him he could no longer use the nickname. You can imagine his response, and he continued to use it. He guessed correctly because it would have done Titan no good PR to try and sue Sammartino over doing autograph shows and grand openings using that billing. But here in 2002, that didn't probably help Larry Zbyszko worth a darn either, did it?
No, Larry went immediately to the short list of potential hires, which is unfortunate. I think, to be honest with you, Larry was a very talented guy and smart, good talker, as we all know. He probably had a few more at bats left. But what do you do? You can't hire a guy that's got 3 lawsuits against, can't do it.
Right.
So, and it was frivolous. It meant nothing. So what do you think Larry was looking for, Conrad? A payday.
Yeah. He wanted a little cash payout.
So that didn't happen. Hey folks, it's time to take your podcast game to the next level. And you certainly want to get your almighty push. My God, we have to have a push, right? We'll get that over to adfreeshows.com. Now, I'm telling you, if you're a fan of Grilling JR, adfreeshows.com has the entire episode library, and it's got no ads. 0 ads, zilch, none. Ad-free and on video starting at just $9. Did you hear what I said? $9. You spend more than that at Starbucks, for God's sakes. 2 mornings. But that's not all, folks. We got tons of bonus content, including my after-hours roundtable, where drinking was involved with Eric and Tony. You simply will not find a better value in all of wrestling. Hey, look, don't make me go red ass, because by God, you know I will. Hurry over to adfreeshows.com right now and sign up. And I thank you.
Unfortunately, we got some bad news here, Jim. Lou Thesz is going to pass away on April 28th, 19 days after undergoing open heart surgery in Orlando, 4 days after his 86th birthday. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us. And it's pretty amazing that so many wrestling fans, myself included, never really got to see a ton of his stuff.
Right.
But Lou Thesz was wrestling royalty, was he not?
Oh God, yes, absolutely. We pretty much, I guess not pretty much. I think we pretty well ignored his death. So he's a guy that should have had in memory of the beginning of the show, and he should have had a video in there. There's plenty of footage that you could obtain. But he was one of my heroes. He was one of my. I had a lot of long, nice, educational, informative talks with Lou, and I would say that we became friends, whether it be through something like the Cauliflower Alley Club, which is coming up soon, or the Hall of Fame in Iowa. Waterloo. He just was he loved to get back to the business, still loved the business. And for us to do that, there were several of us. I don't remember everybody, but I know Jerry Briscoe and I were almost shocked that we didn't say shit about it. I thought it was very disrespectful, and it was a situation that could have been so easily remedied, you know, not even a graphic. So I thought that was not cool. And I know that over the years, so many of these fucking wrestling guys, promoters feel obligated. So somewhere along the way, I am assuming that Lou didn't do some sort of business for Vince Senior that was required or was expected or was.
Here's what Meltzer had to say. I just wanted to sort of fill the gaps of what you're saying here. One day after his death, the only national promotion left in the United States, in a display lacking class to a degree that even carnies of the past likely wouldn't have lowered themselves to, failed to acknowledge the death of someone who many would argue is the greatest star in the history of the industry. Even sadder was the embarrassment when Steve Austin delivered a Thesz press in his tag match, and Jim Ross, who routinely calls the move, paused for a second. The pause showed he didn't know what to do and knew he was in a no-win situation. Obviously, the subject had been brought up in production and the company decision had been made. The decision that was made spoke more volumes about the company than anything in a long time. Granted, Thesz had never had nice things to say about today's WWF wrestling other than praising its production and raving about Kurt Angle. There had been legal problems in the past between the two when Thesz unknowingly booked the Samoans for an overseas tour, only to find out they were still under WWF contract. But he had appeared once and was put over at the Meadowlands in the mid-'80s at a WWF Old Timers Battle Royal and made appearances at a major show in Houston and at the Bad Blood pay-per-view in St. Louis in 1997. Maybe it was symbolic that even in death, the promoter makes the final decision, and all wrestlers, no matter how important they once were, are nothing more than replaceable parts on an assembly line to be forgotten the day after they draw their last house. The Lou Thesz press, Ross said, moving quickly away from the subject. Man, this is the way it's written is tough, but I feel bad for you. Is Dave on the money here? You knew that you probably should acknowledge it, but you were told not to?
Yeah. We're going to ignore Lou's passing. But I didn't think if you do your proverbial deep dive, it went as deep as that, you know, it's a hold. And people are not as hell bent on hearing those holds names as they are today, because there's so much diversion and there's the Japanese influence, certainly the Hispanic influence, and all these other things. And wrestling fans believe that all that is crucial to the storytelling, that you know the name of every hold. And I'm wondering if our mainstream audience even gives a shit what the name is. How did it work? How did it affect the match? You know, what damage did it do? Blah, blah, blah. So, to me, that just came out automatic. I didn't know. I think Steve did the thing to tribute to Lou. And all I was doing was my job, calling what I saw. And, but I didn't get any trouble for it. I mean, my God, you could, like you said, I found myself in a jackpot. I was down the rabbit hole. So I said it and moved on.
What was your relationship like with Lou?
Oh God, it's great. You know, Lou had a real strong relationship with Leroy McGurk, my first boss. He and Bill Watts. We shared mutual admiration society for Danny Hodge. Funny story. Lou told me one time, I said, we're talking about shooters, and he was known as a shooter big time. And he would use that double wrist lock as his kill weapon. So if a frisky little contender in a territory somewhere in, you know, Decatur, Illinois or someplace, I don't know why I picked that town, but nonetheless, wherever, got risky. Lou went to the double wrist lock. So you either straighten up or I'll break your arm. So that's how it was. And but I asked him one time about all these different shooters, and I had a bunch of questions. Dick Hutton was NWA champion, former amateur Oklahoma State, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of these guys burn. I wonder how all the legends true. And finally he named all these guys, and the ones you would think. And then he said, and then I said, but what, you didn't mention Hodge. He said, oh, wait a minute. That's a different deal. There's only one Hodge. Everybody knows it. Everybody understands it. You just don't screw with him. He can beat anybody at any time that he chooses. And I said, does that include you, Lou? Said, oh yeah, absolutely. He's extraordinary. So little stories like that just gave me a more of a appreciation for the product. But I got a lot of good advice from Lou, and he'd point out things on the talent. This guy's got some good balance, or this guy's got he's got a potential to be really good. So I had a great relationship with Lou. I enjoyed hanging around him, and he listened to the stories. If you're a good listener, it was a wrestling heaven. That's like Starcast. It's gonna be wrestling heaven, and come on in, doors open. So I loved when Lou came around. And like I said, he was a champion and the dominant figure in the entire business for many, many years. And he just had a great rapport with Leroy. Of course, Leroy never saw Lou. I don't know. Leroy probably saw Lou. No, I know he did. Leroy saw Lou wrestle because many know Leroy became blinded in early 50s, 51 or 2. And but Lou had a long run before that. But you go back to the 30s. Here's a guy that's on top with a bunch of fickle wrestling promoters in these little territories.
Yep.
Just, how do you do that?
Mm-hmm.
You look at the lay of the land today, and it ain't going to happen. Because I think sometimes we believe that change is better for change's sake, and it's never better.
Well, speaking of lay of the land, let's talk about the lay of your land. Of course, I'm talking about Sunday because, man, Sunday saved my butt last year. I got to admit, I have been known to have a bit of a brown thumb. I try, but man, it's hard to get your yard right. And I used to dread taking the time and effort to fertilize my lawn, but now I look forward to it. Sunday's lawn care products are quick and easy. I don't even have to go to the store. Everything is delivered right to my door. Your yard is supposed to be your personal oasis. And if you've seen Jim Ross's backyard, you know that's true. It deserves the best. Sunday helps you grow a beautiful lawn, control your pests, and fight weeds without all the toxic stuff. Meaning it's good for those dogs too, right? It's not going to hurt them. Sunday's custom lawn care is effective and super easy. So just go to getsunday.com and put in your address. Really, truly, their lawn analysis tool does the rest. I couldn't believe I got to see like an image of my house. They knew exactly where my yard was, and it's fantastic. They even use soil and climate data to create a personal nutrient plan. It's all delivered to your door right when you need it. And Sunday's lawn care products are made with your family in mind. And that's why they use ingredients you can feel good about, like seaweed, iron, and molasses. But the best part, it really works. And my lawn is proof of it, guys. And right now, Sunday's offering our listeners 20% off. Full season plans start at just $129, and you can get 20% off when you visit getsunday.com/JR at checkout. That's 20% off your custom plan at getsunday.com/JR. And Jim, is there anything better than having a nice yard to hang out in?
No, absolutely not. It just gives you a sense of pride. It's good for entertaining for me, being the world's oldest bachelor. No, seriously. And you said something early when talking about this, about Sunday, is that everything's shipped to you.
Yep.
You don't have to go to go to the store or the, Lowe's or wherever, Walmart, wherever.
None of that. No,
it's going to be brought right to you, and with a plan. So it's not an indiscriminate deal. Okay, we'll use this over here. They have a plan for your yard, and with all the technology that we have now, my God, it's incredible what you can do. So if you want to have a good look at your yard, you've been putting it off for a long time. I have a brown thumb type thing. I got a beautiful yard in Oklahoma. I don't get to see it all the time because I'm here in Florida. That'll change as time goes on. So, but I think it's just a smart thing to do. It increases the value of your home, your presentation, the drive-by appeal, all those things, and it shows your neighbors that you're here to play. I love it.
Check it out. And by the way, I want to echo what Jim just said. Yards are not created equal. It's not a one size fits all solution. What would work in JR's place in Florida wouldn't work at JR's place in Oklahoma.
Right.
Get Sunday takes care of all that. They're going to get that climate and soil data for your region. They're going to get it dialed in, get more information. Just see for yourself. As Jim says all the time, it costs nothing to look. We wish you'd take a look and support our sponsor. See what you think over at getsunday.com/JR. Jim and I think you're going to like it. That's getsunday.com/JR. Let's talk a little bit more about this Raw situation we've got in Buffalo. It's April 29th. We got 8,500 fans here, and it's going to draw the show's lowest rating since the end of football season. It gets a 4.38. But the really worst news is that the Hogan Undertaker angle, which does a little overrun, meaning the show doesn't end when it's supposed to. It goes just a couple minutes longer. Right. It does a 4.10, which makes it the lowest, perhaps the lowest main event overrun dating back 4 years. So once again, it's Flair and Austin carrying the ratings, and it's no longer a theory, but a fact. This is directly from Dave Meltzer, that Hogan is done as a ratings draw. And this might be proof of what we talked about at the top of the show. Nostalgia works, but only for a little while.
Yeah. Short term. It's a short-term fix. Without a doubt. I mean, it's just, to me, it's been proven over and over and over again. I don't know if I agree with the fact that Meltzer's saying that Hogan is not a ratings draw. You put him in a personal issue.
Yes.
And you get him immersed in that, like in the old school. Heel comes in by hook or crook, bloodies him up, beats him up, gives Hogan a reason to fire up. Then, you got a shot at something. But it's got to be a very well strategically crafted storyline. And once you put him back in that light, you mentioned earlier about him being back in the yellow and red. To me, that was a no-brainer.
Yeah.
That's what fans they expected to see. Yes. That'd be like Austin coming out of WrestleMania with a full head of hair.
No.
I don't see that.
No. It is interesting, though, to look back of all the possible opponents for Hogan to really start this comeback tour, if you will. They land on Undertaker. Is that the right one, do you think?
Well, I don't know. It's got a lot of box office appeal. There's no doubt about that. And Undertaker is, of course, a proven commodity. But I don't know if that was the right way to go or not. And I don't have a better suggestion off the top of my head, as I said here, to give you. But you needed, it had to be somebody with some
box office appeal.
Oh yeah, my gosh. Yeah. And Taker had that. So here's the thing I'll say, Conrad, it was worth a try. On paper, it was worth a try.
Do you remember Undertaker having hurt feelings with Hogan? That's been written about a lot over the years, that when Undertaker was really first getting going, as a reminder, he debuted Survivor Series 1990. So fast forward 1 year later, Survivor Series 91, the Undertaker beat Hulk Hogan for the title on paper. Like in that era, only one guy had done that, and that was the Ultimate Warrior. So now for the Undertaker to do it, it's a big doggone deal. And of course, I think everybody knows the story. Hogan claimed that Undertaker dropped him on his head and hurt him, and he had to go to the hospital. And if you watch the footage back, that just wasn't true. Undertaker did not drop him on his head. Now, that's not to say that Mr. Balea didn't experience some discomfort and maybe the jolt, or I don't know what happens in a wrestling ring. I don't pretend to, but I do know that it wasn't negligence on the Undertaker's part.
Oh yeah.
And I feel like there may have been an undercurrent of some hurt feelings, or man, this guy's trying to take my big moment away. I had my mom and dad here, and now there's this black cloud. And then, of course, Hogan leaves, does his thing. And in the meantime, Undertaker goes from essentially new guy to godfather of the locker room.
Oh, yeah.
And so now that Hogan comes back, it does make me wonder, do you think the Undertaker had any sort of concern or hesitation or pause about working with Hogan?
I don't really think so, because he understood Hogan's limitations. Every wrestler, no matter how young or how old, has limitations. No one is the perfect guy. And so I think that, Taker has such a great talent evaluator. He knew what he could get out of Hogan, and vice versa. So, no, I don't think so whatsoever. And I know that even though Mark has always been known as one of the toughest guys in the history of the business, at least in my eyes, because I know how often he worked through injury, and it was astonishing. And working through pain, managing pain, it was tough. So but Taker would not have a bone in his body where he was going to do anything to kind of inadvertently drop somebody on their head. Just wasn't going to happen. That's not him. And I bet my every black hat I own that's a fact. So, I can't believe that. And it's almost incredulous to talk about it.
SmackDown from Pittsburgh on May 2nd has 10,000 in attendance, and Hogan and Jericho are in the main event in a no DQ match. But Meltzer says the result is one of the scariest things in the last 5 years for the company. The show does a 2.9 rating. The audience is 4.48 million viewers, but that's the third lowest for any Raw or SmackDown dating back to 1998. Meltzer would say the realistic rating dropped 18% from last week, which was its lowest realistic rating of the year and second lowest in the history of the show on a non-holiday night. SmackDown had never before drawn a 3.2 rating, a number it had done 3 times in its history on Thanksgiving night in 2000 and 2001, which is one of the lowest rated nights of TV all year. And then on June 14th, 2001, they were in the period where Austin had turned heel, and they were tuning out in droves where he was defending the title against Spike Dudley in the main event. So a 2.9 now. This has to set off some alarm bells. This is not trending in the right direction. And I'm curious, what do you think Vince attributed it to? Is it simply we saddled the wrong horse with Hogan?
I think he wanted to make sure that the horse that they'd saddled was still able to move around and run and be a horse.
Right.
And I think he wanted to make sure we gave that every opportunity that we had. Let's don't cut it short. It's not where we want it to be, but let's continue to travel this road, and maybe it'll start catching on again. And the Hulkamania, the displaced Hulkamania fans will resume watching. But at the end of the day, I'll pull this out of the Cowboys, Bill Watts' hat. We didn't have what they wanted to see. I mean, it's really simple.
Yeah.
If we had what they wanted to see, these ratings would be higher. But they weren't. So it tells me that we were not providing the content, the product that the fans en masse wanted to embrace.
One of the next thing you guys do is go overseas. You're going to start in Germany. You're going to hit Glasgow, Scotland, Birmingham. It's the only UK pay-per-view or UK only pay-per-view Insurrection in London on May the 4th. You got great crowds every night. This is the first overseas tour to the last multiple dates in over 3 years. So it feels as if, hey man, if North American business might be trending down, we know we're hot over there. And this was quite the run. You even wind up doing a bunch of media with Terry Runnels for a few days all over UK TV and radio. Did you enjoy those trips?
Oh yeah. Yeah. One of the nice things about traveling anywhere, and I know that my English and my diction sometimes is going to be a conundrum for some. You go to England or the UK, and you all speak pretty much the same language. Some of the accents are very thick, especially in Scotland. But I always had a great time there. Kenny McIntosh has had me over there a few times. Now, Chris Jericho is going to go back to do some shows. Kurt Angle was just recently there. It's just a phenomenal fan base, and that the promotion that we did 3 weeks ago in Liverpool was a testament to that. I mean, my God, it was packed. And so I love going to the UK. the other thing about it too, I was living in Connecticut, Conrad. It's one flight. It's one flight. I like that. And they spoke our language, or basically we spoke the same language. So I always enjoyed it. I enjoyed all those trips, and hope to go back to do something sooner than later. You know, it's inevitable that at some point in time, AEW will be in the UK.
100%, and they'll crush. Yep. I mean, that is a wrestling crazed, continent. It's unbelievable. It's no wonder that the guys had a good time, and apparently too much of a good time, because on the way back from that pay-per-view was the now infamous plane ride from hell.
Oh, for God's sakes.
We did a whole episode on it in the past over at adfreeshows.com. Everybody's heard enough about it. You know what happened.
Yes.
Let's get to Raw on the 6th, though, in Hartford. It's a sellout, 9,000 fans, but boy, we've got a major change. The World Wrestling Federation is now officially named World Wrestling Entertainment. And unfortunately, a few guys, once that plane landed, they had to get the F out too. The company had been preparing for this for a little while now. So they push out this slogan, get the F out, plastered all over TV. And the only person who didn't get the F out, JR, was you.
Yeah.
You told us a couple weeks back about wearing a sweater on the air here, still with the WWF logo. This is going to be a process, though, to get all the logo. This is not just okay, we took it off of the show open. It's on the turnbuckles. It's on the belts. I mean, it's everywhere, right? It's a process.
Yeah, it's a big process, an expensive process, to say the least. I went out there, business as usual, try to keep things as normal as possible during these changes. So I have had a little case here to store stuff in, and I just picked out one of my shirts out of the case without looking, because it was just automatic. You just you take a shirt out of your closet, you put it on, you wear it, you go to work. And that's didn't work out real well. Poor Jennifer Good, great producer, love her to death. One of the best people I ever worked with, so smart. She got her ass chewed on that, as did I, because I didn't pay attention. God damn it. Pal. So, it's it was a lot of change, and with change comes issues sometimes. And we had some issues there. But here's the thing. So we have this little problem. JR wears the wrong shirt. And so how do you solve that? Whoa, that's a tough one. Get rid of all the WWF shirts, just don't have any more.
Yeah.
I gave away tons of WWF stuff that I wore on the air. And now today I'd probably store it and sell it or something. Well, that stuff becomes a life of its own, which I'm not real big on adding new life to some of these things. But nonetheless, it was just a human error. But it seemed like to me it was a never ending process. Something would always pop up, like you said, turnbuckles,
yes,
ring skirts, this, that, and the other. So it was challenging. Obviously, it sounds like it's so simple. And what's the big deal? I don't know. But it was a bigger deal than we anticipated.
It was a bigger deal. I mean, this is going to be a whole process, and I'm sure it's the last thing you want to be dealing with after that nightmare trip to Europe that started fun and turned out not so fun. But the show actually does okay. It does a 4.56. The rating is up from the week before. But, man, there's another situation. Hogan's going to steal Undertaker's bike. Hogan comes out with the bike, and he doesn't get a big pop at first, but he works the crowd tremendously. He calls out the Undertaker. Undertaker comes out. Hogan challenges him to fight, and he backs down. And then the segment falls apart because Hogan's supposed to ride Taker's bike up the ramp and chase him away, but he couldn't get the bike to move. And it's one of those moments like the Shockmaster falling through the curtain. Fans were booing. And then Hogan was riding the bike through the backstage area. He wouldn't come out. Hogan threatened to run over his bike if he didn't come out. First Lucy the dog, and now the bike gets run over. It's, less than ideal. Let's take a listen.
One opportunity to get your ass off my motorcycle. And if you don't, I will walk down that ramp and kick your teeth. Blah, 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 blah. You know something, Taker? Are you actually going to do something? Or are you just going to stand up there like the bitch that you are?
Ooh.
Believe that? The Undertaker up. Well, obviously, Taker, you don't want none down here. So how about I bring the bike up there to you, brother?
What does this mean? Bring the bike? I can't believe that the Undertaker's going to walk down here.
Oops.
Hogan, that's the Undertaker's bike, so Hogan is certainly not accustomed to riding that motorcycle. They pop a wheelie here. Hogan on a set of plastic, and the Undertaker still with an incredulous look on his face.
Oh, just kill me.
Hogan is almost taunting. I'm not so sure that Hogan is not playing with the Undertaker's mind right now.
I made that up.
Hogan now is off that motorcycle. I don't know what the hell Hogan and the Undertaker. Well, Hogan is coming back. The Undertaker is left. Walk that. Don't do it.
God.
Just ran over the Undertaker's.
Listen, you guys tried. I mean,
we did.
Lord, you were out there trying to make chicken salad so hard.
We worked at it, Connie, just trying to tell a story, making shit up as you go. Because I didn't know, that somebody didn't tamper with the bike, or I just trying to lay out these various scenarios that could be and give people something to think about while we were in this delay, which was very embarrassing. Live TV, baby.
Well, I know it had to be hard, but boy, not as hard as JR's Peter is these days. Thanks to Blue Chew.
What the hell?
Blue Chew Boys and Girls is our sponsor. They are each and every week as we come to you live from the Blue Chew studios. But boy, spring is here. It's officially time to get sprung with Blue Chew. Guys, confidence can take you far in life. It can also help in the bedroom, especially when it comes time to step up to the plate. And that's where Blue Chew comes in. Blue Chew is a unique online service that delivers the same active ingredients as both Viagra and Cialis, but in chewable form and at a fraction of the cost. Now, you can take these dudes anytime, day or night, so you can be ready whenever an opportunity arises, maybe a little run in, or you can plan ahead. Now, the process is simple. You sign up at bluechew.com, you consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. And the best part, well, it's all done online. That means no visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversations, no waiting in line at the pharmacy. Of course, Blue Chew tablets are made right here in the USA. They're prepared and shipped directly to your door, all in a discreet package, but there won't be anything discreet about your package. Come on, guys, try it right now. We've got a special offer for you.
If you great day. Folks, listen to this, Conrad, I'm going to tell you. This is one of the best deals we've ever had from any sponsor, I believe.
Check it out.
Yeah.
I mean, how about this? Try Blue Chew free. How much is it, Jim?
Free 98.
Come on, free. It's free. Just use the promo code JR. Do that at checkout, and you'll have to pay the $5 shipping, but that's for the fan in you. But listen, you're going to try the product for free. And if you don't love it, hey man, no big deal. But I'm telling you, you're going to love it. That's bluechew.com. The promo code is JR to receive your first month free. Visit bluechew.com for more details and important safety information. And we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring the podcast. And Jim, Blue Chew's been a game changer for a lot of fellas, not necessarily somebody who has a problem. It can help with that, but guys who want to put on a 6-star match, you know what I mean?
I hear you. You know what I'm saying? Know what I'm saying? I had a couple of scrimmages this weekend that Blue Chew was a part of.
How'd it work?
It worked. Everything, it worked good. You know, one of the cool things about it is that if you know you got company coming over and you hope that the wind's blowing the right direction, all that good stuff, you can take it, and then by the time everybody's in place, you're ready. You're mentally ready. And I think that's what you said a while ago, and I've talked about it here. Blue Chew gives one confidence. Even if you don't have any erectile dysfunction, and if you do, it's fixable. And I just truly believe it's a great product. And the fact that it's chewable to me is important because it gets in your bloodstream quicker. You can manage it better. So I'm a big believer. I know there's a lot of product like Blue Chew on the market, lots of it, but I've never tried any of the others because I haven't had to. I found something that worked. And so instead of seeking out something else endlessly, I found what works for me, and Blue Chew works for me. And I know we make jokes about it and all these things, but I'm 70 years old.
It's legit.
Yeah, it works.
Yeah.
And for a guy my age or my lifestyle, battling a little cancer thing here, it's worked every single time in some very adverse circumstances. So you want to play, here's an opportunity for you to play and not cost you 1 single cent. $5 for shipping and handling. Are you kidding me? So the worst thing that's going to happen, you're going to invest $5.
Yeah.
Give it a shot.
Or, maybe embarrass yourself like Hogan did. Don't be Undertaker's motorcycle. Let's keep this thing going with Blue Chew. Of course, those are the risks of being on live TV. You did a fantastic job there. In the main event, it's Austin, Flair, and Bradshaw versus the NWO. This is going to be Scott Hall in his final WWE match. Flair's going to turn on Austin and beat him down with a chair. When are you told to let Scott Hall go? Do you remember that conversation?
Yeah, right after
Raw.
Plane Ride from Hell.
Yeah.
I think we got rid of Scott, or I gave him his notice once we got back.
Yeah.
Because I don't remember him being at that first TV after we get back from the UK.
He's just on this one, and that's it.
Yeah. So, but it was unfortunate. I said this to Scott when we terminated our agreement. I think that we might have brought him back on the road when he was not really ready to be back on the road. Because with all the demons that were kind of eavesdropping and looking over the shoulder and all these things, he just wasn't quite ready for that yet. All these demons were too tempting, and I love working with Scott. He's so smart, man. He was so smart. He's been a great booker, I think, or a great maybe not the head booker, I don't know, but idea guy. Nobody better than Scott Hall. So, but the conversation went well. He agreed with me that he didn't need to be on the road.
Right.
So I was just being honest with him. And I found out over the years, even though sometimes it's not what the talent want to hear, as long as you give them the truth in a professional presentation, most of them understand and they get over it and they move on.
Around this same time, TNA is announced as being formed. When does that come on your radar? Do you remember getting a heads up beforehand, or does it just happen just like we'd imagine here? You read it like everybody else did.
I think with all that's on my plate, plane rides from hell, and Kane's hurt, and Lita's hurt, a lot of things are happening. I didn't really have time to pay much attention to it, to be honest with you. So I'm sure what I saw was was online or something. But it didn't move my needle, shall we say, speaking of Blue Chew. It didn't move my needle, Connie. You get that? See what I did there?
I did see what you did.
Yeah. There. Okay. But to me, I didn't care one way or the other. If it gives more wrestlers and people in the business jobs, then that's not a bad thing. And if it's going to make us do a better job in a quote unquote competitive environment, then that's not a bad thing. So it was a situation where you wish them the best of luck, but then you move on. I didn't have time to follow TNA.
Right.
They had a lot of guys there. I watched their show from time to time without question. However, it wasn't something that I went out of my way to deal with. I just had too much going on to worry about TNA.
Let's talk about the next show in Bridgeport. You got 8,500 fans here. That's not really the story. The story is, now remember, guys, April 25th, we had the debut of Randy Orton. a couple of weeks later here on May 9th, we've got the debut of Deacon Batista. Let's take a listen.
But long and behold, brothers and sisters, there has been another follower. That's right. This follower will be here to protect the Devon Building Fund. That's right. I want everybody to get up out of your seats. Put your hands together for Deacon Batista.
Look at the sun. We must have some good gyms in church, huh? Gee.
Now, Deacon, keep one eye on the box as well as the other eye on the ring, because Brother Devon is about to beat the sin out of Triple H.
On showing that vicious streak that could put him to the next level. And look at the Deacon Batista slamming Triple H off the steel steps. And the Deacon who's supposed to be protecting the building fund. The Deacon just taking the game's head off. He just floored Triple H with a massive clothesline. Good head for the game. And look at the Deacon Batista. Vicious right hands. This guy's a monster. An animal. Oh! Out of the way as Batista hits that steel post. Cerebral assassin. The game's always on his game. And now Devon misses with the right hand. Triple H setting Devon up. Pedigree. Here it comes. Cole's going to be in. It's Jericho. He blocks it, a shot to the head of Triple H. That's damn Chris Jericho. That steel money box. That thing's heavy was held around the neck of Batista with the steel chain. And Devon rolls into the cover. Kick out this way. Damn it.
So there you go. Lots to unpack here, as I like to say. But how
You do like to say that.
As a fun little footnote, Batista ended his career with Triple H, and he had his first physicality on WWE TV against Triple H. Thankfully, this whole Deacon gimmick was dropped.
Thank God.
And
no pun intended.
For some reason, we couldn't have Taz, the ECW world champion, get a win on SmackDown over Hunter, but Reverend Devon, just fine, with a little help from Deacon Batista. But thankfully, we came up with a better idea for Mr. Batista, and he did all right.
Yeah, he's done great. And I did a podcast with Dave before you and I collaborated. Oh, he's a great guest. He's so smart and aware. He's not a musclehead. And what a sweetheart of a guy. I remember he started talking about Jan. I started talking about Jan, and he followed up. And he started crying. That's on one of our podcasts that they can probably hear on Ad Free Network someplace. I'm assuming, right?
Yeah.
It's a very compelling listen. So you hear a sensitive side, a human side of Dave Batista that heretofore I don't think a lot of fans had ever experienced. So, but the Deacon thing I hated. It's just, the thing about it, Devon is a great talker, but the star of the Dudleys was Bubba. Maybe it would have worked better if Bubba was involved in the presentation of Deacon Batista. I don't know. I just don't think you could salvage it. The Deacon thing's got to go, and thank God it didn't last forever.
The show does rebound in the ratings. It gets a 3.6 and a 6 share. The main event had Hogan and Edge go to a no contest with Angle and Jericho when a pissed off Triple H beat up everybody with a sledgehammer. And Meltzer would say this: it's not exactly a unique idea to me, but Vince needs to talk with Lawler about his experience keeping Jackie Fargo as a strong draw for 10 years after his heyday should have been over in Memphis, and use that for Hogan. I'm sure that every time Fargo came back, he probably always got as big or a bigger pop than anyone else in the territory, including Lawler, who was always the big draw. But they'd only bring him back 1 or 2 shows every 6 months to a year, so he never came off as an old man, but simply as a legend returning. As much as Hogan and Flair came back, everyone had the pat answers, including Vince himself, on how to use them, not overexpose them, and only have them wrestle 2 to 3 times on pay-per-view and never on TV, etc. But boy, they've done the exact opposite, using them as regular TV main eventers on just about every pay-per-view show and in the ring. They've become 2 of the 5 most pushed acts on TV. And when Vince himself is another, along with The Undertaker, you're really talking about the same problems WCW faced at the end. Just like in WCW, they got more of a crowd pop than the younger guys, but what did that accomplish? Do you remember being hesitant? Because the company is certainly going through a paradigm shift. We're going for youth. We're going for youth. And we told Flair that, or Vince told Flair that in January 93. Here we are 19 years later. We're still after it.
Yeah. Sometimes old procedures are hard to change and hard to adapt.
Sure.
It's overall, you got to get younger. You got to create new stars that create an interest that heretofore had not been experienced by your consumers. And that's just like, it's no different than any other store, Connie, in my opinion, selling product. You have certain things in your store that's going to sell regularly and it's good, but you also know that you got to continue to add to your inventory to have long-term success. And I think that's kind of where we were. We were in that no man's land where, if you look at the total age of all those guys we're talking about here now, we got old again.
Right.
And everything got in a rush zone because of panic, because of the television ratings. Sometimes the ratings can be a blessing and a curse. It's obvious. We know that. But boy, sometimes we overreact too when they're not great.
So the go home Raw for Judgment Day is in Toronto, and it's 15,500 fans. And Meltzer would call it a Nitro appreciation show because it's Flair and Hogan as the focal points and surprises that don't deliver. Meltzer would say it had a cornball angle with the wrong kind of heat. They introduce Dreamer as Mick Foley from high school. He brushes his teeth with the same toothbrush he was brushing his dog's teeth with. He shaved his tongue with a razor, and then he drank water out of a urinal. Jim, what in the world is this?
I have no idea. I just tried to visualize it again. Unfortunately, you create another. I'd rather go get a colonoscopy to see that creative again. I don't know why anybody would think that was good television. And Tommy Dreamer has always been a great team player. And, he works, does a good job there on Busted Open Radio and Sirius XM channel 156. Got great stories, so forth, so on. But I don't need to see him shaving his tongue. I don't even need to see his tongue. There's too much tongue in wrestling. But Tommy was willing to do anything for the cause. But boy, that was stretching it. I'm trying to say, well, JR, you're older. You got to get younger, feel younger, perceive things a little bit more fresh. Agreed. You're right. But goddamn, what purpose did this serve? I never got that, Connie. I don't know why we did it. It was a sensationalistic stunt. It's simple as that. Mick Foley's high school. God, stop. It makes you tune out. It's a tune out thing. Even if you don't actually physically turn the channel or click to another channel, whatever case may be, you got to figure out, well, wait a minute, what did that just do? What did we just try to do here? What were we trying to achieve? And it was poor, really poor. And that's why I say that for crisis time to be like crisis times were at that point in time, we went about it in a hell of a unique way, Conrad, to solve some of our ills by having, Tommy Dreamer do something at the urinal or whatever. But the only thing I can say is I'll give Tommy credit for doing it, because he was asked to do it. That was a play they called. That's what they wanted to do, and he ran the play. As simple as that. It was just distasteful and meaningless.
Hogan and Flair are going to be working for the title. Hogan gets the win in 8 minutes and 46 seconds. I want to remind everybody, this isn't 1992. This is 2002. And Meltzer would say these guys are still the very best at getting every little trick of getting heat and confusing so many people that heat equals money. From a technical standpoint, this was Hogan's best match since being back, as Flair is still the best in the world at carrying a total 0 to a decent match. It was sad when Flair couldn't flip all the way over doing his Ray Stevens bump into the corner, but aside from that, it was exactly what you'd expect in every spot. X-Pac interfered after a first leg drop, but Hogan got rid of him. Show and Bradshaw got involved, and Flair had the match won, and then Austin ran in, gave Flair a stunner, and that led to the leg drop. But this is pretty remarkable when you think about it, that our go home for the pay-per-view, where Hogan's getting a title shot, once again, is Hogan and Flair. The result, though, is we need a little bit of a payback for what happened with the motorcycle the week before. So Hogan does an interview. Undertaker hits him a few times with a tire iron and then decides, I'm going to tie him up behind my own motorcycle. An Undertaker drives all over backstage with Hogan dragging around behind him. And apparently in the building, people were laughing at this, which is not the kind of emotion you're looking for to build pay-per-views. But it ends with Hogan wearing his crash helmet, crashing into a set of empty cardboard boxes. Hogan suffered a neck injury a few days before the title match, which those who remember San Martino and Backlund's title losses will remember as the old gimmick. But this is an interesting piece of television. Let's take a listen.
What's this by the Undertaker?
I think Stone Cold.
Right there.
Oh, you might be somebody.
Another shot. That tire iron.
Dead man hates in the house. Oh, God.
Hogan gets beat up by a tire iron, then hog tied, and brought to his own motorcycle. And, wait a minute, back. They're coming back. My God, we're live now. We're back live. The Undertaker dragging Hogan throughout the air canvas. Somebody got stopped. God almighty. What has the Undertaker done to Hollywood Hulk Hogan? Hogan dragged like a piece of meat. He's a human being, damn it.
Welcome to my world, Hogan. Welcome to my world.
My God, welcome to Judgment Day.
I see you Sunday.
King, he's the undisputed champion. He's been dismantled. This is unbelievable. He's been executed.
So Austin's main event is a lumberjack with all the heel lumberjacks against a mystery partner, a new member of the NWO, which turns out to be Booker. And boy, was the crowd deflated for that. Ultimately, Austin gives Regal a stunner and pins Booker after a schoolboy in 5.5 minutes. And after Austin's laid out virtually every heel in the company, he walks off, but he's jumped by, you guessed it, a retired road agent, Arn Anderson, who beat him up. Show then chokeslammed him twice and elbow dropped him while Flair continued to beat on him, and Austin was bleeding from the mouth. I could see how if I were Steve Austin and once upon a time considered the biggest draw in the history of the wrestling business, and I still think I am that in my own mind. In reality, he is. I mean, we've seen that the ratings where Hogan's on top maybe aren't doing the best, but Austin and Flair ratings are still strong. But this is the creative. I could see how he would be a little frustrated.
Yeah. Who wouldn't be? It wasn't good. It was desperation booking. Can we just try to catch their lightning in a bottle? We need a break here. We need something to break through, something to regenerate the interest of our masses of fans, which for some reason was starting to dwindle. I hate when a guy does that.
Yeah.
Don't ever show. I don't know. Never mind. But yeah, it was desperation booking, Conrad. You got the goose that laid the golden eggs. He's still got some eggs left, but you got to get him a good nest, and you got to get him some surroundings. You got to get him some adversaries, and you got to let those villains get momentum. You can't beat everybody every night. Steve needed to go through a lot of more struggle and trials and tribulations, in my opinion. But we were in a desperate state, needed a operating. My God, Conrad, look at the talent.
Yeah.
Think about it.
Yeah.
Flair, Hogan, Austin. The only thing missing was Rock. And he wasn't gone forever. So it's a crazy scenario in my estimation. It's a great example of what you do when you think your back's against the wall and you must create something hot. I'm going to go write a hit song. Well, how do you know it's going to be a hit? You hope it is. You can hear it in your head. You can play the music in your head, but how do you know? There's no guarantee.
Right.
And there certainly wasn't a guarantee in this.
And there was no guarantee in the Ric Flair heel turn. That ratings curse hit him on May 13th. Raw drew its lowest rating since March 30th, 1998. It did a 3.91 rating. It even did poorly in Canada, which means it did less than 597,000 viewers. And this is a show that's coming from Toronto. So it just doesn't feel like we're headed in the right direction here. And unfortunately, the bad news keeps coming. We learned that we lose Davey Boy Smith on May 17th, and he's only 39 years old.
Man.
What do you remember when you heard this news?
I was shocked. Last time I had seen Davey, he looked great. A lot of those guys are looking great in the gym, but you wonder, when was the last time you did your medicals?
Right.
When was the last time you had blood work done? Simple things that we do as a matter of fact in most lives. But I was, like I said, the last time I saw him, he looked awesome. And it was a real shocker, to be honest with you, real shocker. But 39, come on, he had 10 years left.
Yeah. I mean, in the ring, I mean, at least.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
As a wrestler, active wrestler.
But as a human being, he should have had decades, and he's just gone way too soon. And there's so much happening here. I mean, just to recap, we lost Lou Thesz, we lost Davey Boy Smith. Unfortunately, the plane ride from hell happened. Ratings are down. Hulk Hogan is trying whatever he can to jumpstart the Undertaker's motorcycle bike to keep his nostalgia run alive, and that's not working out. Austin's frustrated. The company's changing names. All of this is going on. And oh, by the way, we got a pay-per-view, and here we are. The reason we're doing this show, May 19th, the Gaylord Entertainment Center. It's in Nashville, Tennessee, the first ever pay-per-view under the WWE banner. And up first, what a set of talents. Eddie Guerrero is going to retain the Intercontinental title, beating Rob Van Dam in 10 minutes and 17 seconds. Meltzer called it a fast open and a decent match, but felt it was a little disappointing. He says Van Dam had a major window of opportunity a few months ago, and now it appears to be closed. Trying to recapture it may prove frustrating. These two guys are just fantastic. Guerrero's going to get the win after a backslide with his feet on the ropes. So, there's going to be good action with these two in here.
Yeah.
But I do think Dave makes a great point. A few months prior, let's say less than a year ago, even starting back as far as July, when he and Jeff Hardy tore it up at Invasion 01, it felt like there was a pocket there where we could have made him a main event star. We know he's going to get there, but it's probably 3 years after this before that happens. If you had to go back and do it all over again, do you think you could have elevated Rob Van Dam the same way you did Chris Jericho in late 01 to where he could have been at that level here?
Without a doubt. Absolutely. Absolutely. You got to have the balls to make changes. You got to have balls to change quarterbacks. You got to have balls to do these things. And, we apparently didn't have the balls or the commitment, or maybe outside influences were manipulating Vince's pattern, because Vince is too smart a promoter to not hear the audience. Van Dam always consistently got a big pop, telling me that the audience was glad to see him, and we're excited about what he's getting ready to do.
Yeah.
And he had a unique style. Nobody else is like RVD. He just didn't. You shouldn't allow your company to penalize a guy because of his some of his social situations, i.e. 420, smoking weed. Who cares?
Yeah.
As long as you're not smoking it before your matches, and it doesn't affect your performance or put somebody at risk. But yeah, RVD was a huge missed opportunity, and he would have added youth and at least a youthful feeling, Conrad, and that unique style. Just we've missed the boat on that deal, just simply because the office didn't have the confidence that RVD was reliable in the sense of, well, he just smoked a little weed. Yeah, he robs banks, and come on, shit. But yeah, we missed the boat on that one big time.
How excited are you, and how excited is the rest of the roster that Eddie Guerrero is back, man? After being out for just a little bit, coming back here and having great matches, carrying the Intercontinental title. You know what you got with Eddie Guerrero, do you not?
Oh yeah, gosh, yes, one of the best wrestlers in the world. We had a roster, Conrad. He started naming these guys that could work, but they had to be given. They had to get in the game. Put me in. Let me play. Let me run with the ball. Give me some touches. But Eddie was just, I mean, the talent we had, I mean, Eddie fit right in, obviously. He was better than probably 99% of the guys we had. And him coming back and after having addressed some of his demons was for me personally, was a big win. I was so happy to see him back. And Eddie, talents loved Eddie, and they loved working with Eddie. So when you got a litany of guys that come to me and say, "Hey, JR, am I booked on the house shows week after next and whatever? You got those cards booked? If you don't, could I work with Eddie?" That happened all the time. Can I work with Eddie? And if the card wasn't booked and it's going to make a talent happy, well, shit, yeah. Because I know that if you want to work with Eddie, you're motivated. And if he is in the match and knows that you're motivated, you guys will crush it. So getting Eddie back was a big win on a lot of fronts.
Next up, we had something, well, a little interesting. You got two of the most beautiful women that ever got into the WWE, Trish Stratus and Stacy Keibler. The women's title's on the line, but Stacy Keibler, Lord bless her, probably not supposed to be getting title shots on pay-per-view here. 2 minutes and 54 seconds is how long it goes, but it's really the backdrop of a start of a Bubba Ray Devon feud, which I guess is interpromotional because one guy's on Raw and one guy's on SmackDown.
Yeah, there you go. There you can see there. That's my point.
Yes.
Why?
Yes.
Okay. Make a trade.
Yes.
Create some synergy to where you make a trade and you get Devon and Bubba on the same brand instead of just doing this, because it didn't seem fresh. It didn't seem new. And the talents deserve better, but the presentation of Bubba and Devon was not up to speed, in my opinion.
So Devon tells Vince that Bubba's not going to be there. And then, of course, Bubba comes out and quotes the "thou shalt not lie" phrase. And the match opened with Keibler missing a kick by 4 feet that Trish still sells like she was Ric Flair. Deacon Batista body slams Trish, but she still kicks out.
Terrible.
Not exactly the way to get a new monster over.
Terrible.
Stratus then gets the pin after a mistimed facebuster, and after the match, Bubba and Devon faced off and shook hands, and then Batista went to attack Bubba, but he got rid of him with no problem. Not exactly the best second impression either. Eventually, they double teamed him after Devon clotheslined him from behind. Devon told Batista to get the tables, and then Bubba made a comeback on both until Deacon hit him with the collection box and gave him a flapjack through the table. Aside from establishing Batista as a bit player from the very start, this angle was okay, quarter star. But my God, Trish kicks out of a Batista body slam. What?
Yeah. How many geniuses does it take to have a meeting and figure that out? I mean, that was ridiculous. And I love Trish this very day. I enjoyed seeing her in Liverpool 2 or 3 weeks ago, as we referred to before. She looks awesome. She's got a great gig there in Canada on Canada's Got Talent, and a key player in that show. It's a big show. So she's done great since actively leaving wrestling as a wrestler. She still looks great. But as much as I love her and respect her, and I signed her, she was a great talent to recruit, to meet with, et cetera, et cetera. It just, my God, what are we thinking? Are you serious? So I don't remember how I sold that, but probably wasn't as, if I don't feel it sometimes, Conrad, I'm not a real good actor. Sometimes it's best just to lay out. It's like Steve Harvey says on Family Feud, sometimes it's just best to take the X.
We got Vince and Ric Flair in a love fest, Meltzer says, which actually should be saved in a time capsule for future generations. Not that there was anything special about the skit, but the portrayal of two guys hugging while you could see they're going to backstab each other is so apropos of the pro wrestling business, and it was more telling in a minute than almost anything you'd see. But man, Flair and Vince were just natural on camera, were they not?
Oh yeah, you got two of the best talkers ever. So you had anything less than the greatness that we saw would be a huge disappointment with those two guys involved.
Let's talk about the next match. We got Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman in a tag team match taking on the Hardy Boys. Meltzer would say there were loud Goldberg chants during this match. Still think Lesnar is selling too much. At least his selling was better. And the jawbreaker spot with Jeff was fine. Lesnar did whatever that move is on Jeff. It's sort of like the old Mark Mero TKO. And Heyman screamed for the tag, then got the pin on Jeff. Nothing special as a match, but it seemed to accomplish what it set out to do. It's pretty crazy to think, especially when you look back here, that all these guys are still tearing it up in the wrestling business 20 years later. The Hardy Boys are on top in AEW. Brock Lesnar's on top everywhere he goes. And of course, Paul Heyman, the humble advocate, if you will, is just crushing it for the bloodline.
Yeah.
And here to see Heyman and Brock as a tag team, this is just fun stuff.
Yeah. And we talked earlier about, when do you know a talent is it stay too long? Well, you can't just make a blanket statement. If a guy's been there blank weeks or blank months or blank years, something's got to change. Well, that's your own impatience, quite frankly, in my view, because like you said, Heyman's not the most athletic dude. Paul Heyman athletically made Jim Cornette look like, Kurt Angle. He wasn't athletic. However, Paul Heyman is as influential as any other singular talent in the entire WWE company. And he's done it after all these years. So I'm not a big on the blanket statements. Well, this guy's got to go, or this is too long. He's been here too long, whatever. How do you know that? How's his his or her creative been going into this assessment? So it's just amazing. Talent overcomes everything. You got great talent and you're smart, you overcome.
So next up, we've got Booker T doing an interview with an NWO t-shirt on when a hot mama shows up to seduce him and gives him her hotel room key. And later in the show, we're in the hotel room with the lights out, and all of a sudden it's Goldust in the bed. Booker turns the lights on. Goldust explains that Booker should stay with him and not be a part of the NWO. Booker runs out wearing almost nothing with a full ass shot. And then Goldust said he had wasted a good nightie. That, of course, he's wearing over his wrestling costume. I don't know that I love the NWO Booker thing, but man, this comedy duo of Booker Goldust,
really good.
It's hilarious. Now, it might not be box office in terms of these guys are going to be main eventers, but it flexes a muscle that's important on a wrestling show. You got to have something for everybody.
Yeah.
And then those guys were just magic together.
They had great chemistry. It's natural. They got along well outside of their on-camera stuff. They communicated well, in other words, but they had natural comedic chemistry, much like Monsoon and Heenan back in the day in their roles. They just had natural comedic timing, and you can't manufacture, and they had it. The thing about it is that you don't want to have that comedy skit being one of 5 or 6 comedy skits on the show, because it lessens it. It lessens the effectiveness of it. It lessens the humor and the spontaneity. So don't overexpose your comedy and put a spotlight on the comedy that you know has a chance of working. And Booker T and Goldust certainly had those attributes going for them. Natural chemistry, and they were fun to watch.
Next up, it's Steve Austin winning a handicap match over Ric Flair and Big Show. It goes 15 minutes and 36 seconds. The crowd was very into it. And Meltzer would say it's weird to see Austin on this early again. Flair, not just physically, but working wise, looked the best he's looked since coming to WWE. As much as I think he shouldn't be in the ring on TV and rarely on house shows and pay-per-views, he delivered strong here and was better in the ring than everyone. Than all but a few guys on the show. Apologies. Show and Flair worked on Austin's leg. Austin came back with a figure 4 on Flair, but Show leg drops him early in the match when both guys were bouncing around for Austin. He put Flair in a figure 4, and Show started beating on him to start up the heat. And after a Thesz press on Flair, Jim Ross actually made reference to the idea that Austin gave Flair a Thesz press. And X-Pac ran in, but ended up kicking Show. Austin gives Show a stunner, X-Pac, and then Flair. To his credit, Austin is still selling the knee big as he went up the ramp to give the impression he didn't come out unscathed, even though he won. So 3.25 stars, but Austin's on 4th, and it's a handicap match, and it just feels like kind of throwaway creative. But man, the crowd was into it. They want Austin however they can get him.
Absolutely. And that's the frustrating part of this sometimes. You don't have to look and look and look to overcome a creative snafu. You got the guy. Now build some heels around him. Make a heel factory, as they say back in the old locker room days. You need a heel factory. And it's just, you ain't got to look hard, but we try to make it hard sometimes. And there was this, I think, almost like a political agenda that we needed different. We needed new. We needed change. Change for change's sake is always the kiss of death. And, but we had the guy right there in Stone Cold. The audience would still invest merchandise-wise, which we knew the records of that and how that was going. They would still buy tickets. They would still give a big pop. They still were all attuned to what Steve was doing. And, but I didn't have a big issue with him going on early, but it was different. I will say that it was certainly different, but it gave some other guys a chance. It's like I told them, well, you got a chance to steal a show. You got a chance to get all that spotlight. That's your time. So I could see your consternation on it. I can appreciate it, but it didn't affect me in a negative way like it may have affected you.
Let's talk about the next piece of business here, because it is something people are still talking about to this day. It's Edge and Kurt Angle in a hair match. And I know what you're thinking, man, when has there ever been a good hair match? Well, we might've found the one. These guys have a 4.5 star match. They get plenty of time, 15 minutes and 30 seconds. Meltzer said, you have to give Angle all the credit in the world here because he did the best job of elevating a new star for real all the way without muffing it by confusing the finish since Mick Foley and Triple H. And that was years ago. And that's also part of the problem. Whether Edge makes it or not, it was very clear the idea of this was to make it his breakthrough. And you can't fault Angle's work in trying. So the match, and I highly recommend it. I think everybody should go out of their way to see it. It's a really good match. It's back and forth. Eventually Edge gets the pin with an inside cradle. And after the match, Angle attacks him again, teasing that he's going to lay him out and not take the haircut. But Edge hits his finish, the implant DDT, the education, if you will. And Angle manages to run off before getting the haircut. And they did a skit later in the show where Edge is chasing him. Angle's trying to hide to avoid the haircut. And finally, before the main event, Angle gets the advantage, brings Edge out, throws him off the ramp into a makeshift barbershop. Edge comes back and puts Angle in the chair, gets the sleeper hold, and shaves his head with him out. When Angle is revived, he sees himself, and Angle puts it over so strong. But he winds up doing, quote unquote, Buddy Roberts heat, which is fun mid-card heat. Unfortunately, Angle has to do something other than fun mid-card from this point forward. 4.5 stars. I get what Dave is saying, that Edge is a rising star, and this is a bit of a comedy thing because it's hair. But Angle is this serious ass kicker. But it wound up being a great match and a really memorable skit, Jim.
Yeah, and the thing about it, Conrad, is that you really love the fact that the Buddy Roberts heat, Meltzer's words, not mine. You can do worse. Buddy Roberts had a lot of heat. He filled his role very well with the Freebirds for years, as we know. So I don't know if I agree with that, Buddy Roberts heat being a bad thing, or is this one match going to earmark that Kurt is a comedy guy? No, but I think it's a little overreaction by Meltzer on that one. But I look, he gave the match, what, 4.25 stars?
Yeah, 4.5.
Yeah, that's pretty damn good by his scale. I don't know how those stars are accumulated or how you arrive at that, but no matter how, that's a hell of a match. And I'm not one to say, well, I'm going to find something that I can criticize or find something that I can you know, bust their balls, because I feel like that's my job. 4.5 stars. Come on.
Fantastic. Meltzer would say there'd been talk of having Triple H and Jericho go on last, feeling that match would be the match to steal the show, and Undertaker Hogan was just going to stink. But the reverse decision was made. So go the other way. And instead, up next is Triple H and Chris Jericho. And Meltzer said it was a very good match, but to many it was a letdown because the Hell in the Cell structure brings back memories of matches that it simply couldn't touch without resorting to major risks, which the company honestly just can't afford with so many guys being injured. And the attempt was to use blood and weapons to take place of the sick bump spot, which Triple H was probably for, but still, the finish is a pedigree on top of the cage to win the Hell in a Cell. But the crowd was quiet early, and it's tough because you've got lots of quote unquote gimmicks and gaga. I like the match. Meltzer gave it 3 3/4 stars, but I do think he's on the money, man. We have set an expectation now, right or wrong, that my goodness, somebody's got to be thrown off the top of something, and it's got to be a stuntman affair, or else we feel a little let down, right?
Yeah, the Mick Foley bump in June of 1998 lingers.
Yeah,
and I can understand, rightfully so. I mean, it's unbelievable. I wouldn't ever recommend it ever happening again. I don't think it ever will happen again to that degree. It's just hard. It's hard to go recapture something and rewind it, Conrad, the second time around.
Yeah.
You got to come up with something else. And so then, unfortunately, then the thought process, well, somebody's got to go higher. Somebody's got to, take one of those Shane McMahon death drops or something. And to me, it's a bad trend, man. It's a bad trend, quite frankly. So instead of memorializing the Foley bump, we try to top it, and it wasn't no topping for it. It was just extraordinary. And I hope, again, as I said, I hope we never see another one again. I don't want to be no fuddy-duddy, but shit, I don't know if Mick Foley was ever the same. And I know that we've dodged a bullet there. How he landed at my feet. I was pretty close to the action. It was scary and shit. I was immediately calling for medical help because I didn't see how a human being could endure what we just saw. And so those Hell in a Cell matches is a bad trend. So, but I thought the finish, the pedigree on the top of the cage is pretty cool.
I mean, just seeing the walls of Jericho on top of the cage is cool. Having the referee climb on the cage for the finish is cool. A DDT through a table was cool. We've got the chair shots. We've even got a barbed wire board. I mean, we're doing lots of crazy stuff here, but I still feel like people are just waiting on this big bump.
They were. You're right. They were waiting. They were waiting around, and now what do you got for me now? Type thing.
Next up is a let me up match. I guess I should mention before we keep going, this Hell in a Cell is ultimately the match that cost Tim White his career, which is pretty sad. I mean, obviously nobody ever wants to see anybody get hurt, but as the old saying goes, it ain't ballet.
Yeah.
But man, Tim White getting hurt here. Meltzer would say Tim White took actually the best looking bump of the match when Jericho collided with him on the apron and he flew into the cage with the idea that he hit his head on a thick metal part of the cage. White juiced. Well, the reality is, while they have this whole referee bump and that's the way they open the door and blah, 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 I get all that. But man, it cost him his whole freaking career. We never saw him referee again. And
big loss.
I don't think he was ready to go, and he was reliable.
I stay in decent contact with Timmy. He lives down here in Florida. He's long since the days of the Friendly Tap. Nice place to drink beer back in the day. That was a big loss. But the thing about it is that we knew that once Timmy got over the hump of healing some of his wounds, he'd always have a job there. And he did for many years after that. Vince was very loyal to Timmy in that regard. And then when the time came that Timmy had to move on, then Vince was unloyal and he was this and that. But Timmy was a very valuable member of the team. and a hell of a referee. He made the referee job seem like it's not a gimmick, it's real. And I thought that was a great accomplishment.
Next up, Rico and Rikishi beat Billy and Chuck in 3 minutes and 50 seconds to win the WWE Tag Team titles. Rico came out with Billy and Chuck, then paused for a long time before announcing Rikishi's partner, which Howard Finkel got from an envelope. Rico acted all freaked out to get the babyface pop, but the fans weren't buying it, and the crowd was dead. Afterwards, Rikishi left and danced. Rico leaves with Billy and Chuck, and he's happy to grab his tag belt because he and Rikishi are now the tag champions. Not a great match, but it is a let me up match. I guess it served its purpose. Meltzer didn't love it though. He gave it a half a star.
Yeah, well, that's not surprising.
No.
I don't think that the company did Billy and Chuck any favors. The gimmick was dead from day one. And both of them are good talents. Billy Gunn especially was just a hell of a worker. Still, hey, look, I saw Billy work the other day on the dark match at AEW. The son of a bitch can still go. He can still go. He looks great. He slowed things down. He tells good stories. But we didn't do those guys a lot of favors with this hanging that gimmick on there. And again, playing on the sexual thing. Billy and Chuck, are they gay? Does it matter? Why does it matter? So it's like, so in other words, we're going to build an angle on homophobia. What the fuck are we thinking?
Right.
That makes no sense. So, and it's like, I don't know. I just don't believe, I'm not big on those angles where it's involving religion or politics. And to me, this was a political hot button. And of course, you're looking to draw that unique pop and get, well, I got to watch these guys some more. This is really cool. It wasn't really cool and it didn't work.
Next up, it's The Undertaker. It's The Undertaker and Hulk Hogan in 11 minutes and 17 seconds. Meltzer would say Undertaker came out to new music, and there's a feeling the missing ingredient is a weakness on the heel side. Angle has been booked as a clown. Jericho is trying, but people don't see him as enough of a threat. Flair is great at being a heel, but nobody wants to hate him, and his age hurts him as being a physical threat. And they also want to cheer The Undertaker. Although he works strong by not doing much bumping or selling, that's the physical threat part he's got, but he's just been around so long, he's almost a tired act on top. They took his entrance music away because he was getting a huge face pop with it. If anything, that was living proof about entrance pops. He got zero reaction coming out, and it was the same guy in his biggest match in a long time, only because he had different music. They traded belt shots early, very much like one of those terrible Hogan WCW main events. Hogan worked on his knee, or Undertaker worked on his knee, including wrap it around the post. And the post contained, or the match contained, some of the worst brawling you'll ever see north of AAA. Hogan did the big boot, poorly timed, and went for a leg drop, but Undertaker blocked it and turned it into a half crab. Undertaker then delivered what may have been the worst choke slam in history. Hogan just wouldn't go up, and Undertaker didn't muscle him. Hogan kicked out of the pin and hulked up. Undertaker sold the Hogan comeback about as bad as anyone ever. He hit the leg drop and Undertaker kicked out. Vince comes down. Hogan kicks a chair into Undertaker's face, but Vince had Earl Hebner distracted. And this may have been the spot where Undertaker's lip was busted open and he bit his tongue. Hogan pounded on Vince and gave him a leg drop. Undertaker then gave Hogan a chair shot to the upper back and a second chokeslam, which was slightly better than the first one, but he put him down even easier for the pin. And you'd have to go back years to find a WWF pay-per-view main event this bad. Undertaker pounded on Hogan with a chair after the match as well. Quarter star. It's just not great, dude. And, you know, Hogan had seemingly been getting huge reactions, a little tweak with the Undertaker's music, and it's like the fans all of a sudden aren't with it. But that choke slam, I'll never forget being in the arena and thinking, and I just feel bad for the guys because you know that's not what they intended when they started.
Right. Yeah. It was just, we talked earlier about styles and the Austin Hogan thing. Austin didn't have the match with Hogan because he didn't want to have the match that the Undertaker did. Hogan was, you know, battered, beat up, multiple back surgeries. It's funny. when people say, what's the really important things to learn in getting pro wrestling training? Well, you got to learn to take a great flat back bump, because about 98% of the stuff that you see ends with a flat back bump. So being able to execute a flat back bump, which sounds very simple, and it is, but a lot of guys spend no time on it. They'd rather spend more time on tope suicidas and shit like that than how to sell or how to take a flat back. So, but I'll say this. The match was not an artistic success, as we've agreed on. As Meltzer even, I'll agree with him on this one. But it wasn't because those guys didn't work their ass off. You know, you got a guy that's got a bad back and he's not a spring chicken, and you know he worked his ass off. Taker tried to do all he could to make the match a success, but it just didn't get the job done. And that's sad to say when you're talking about two legends, legit legends like Taker and Hulk.
The choke slam, we're going to put it up on social so you guys can see it, but Lord, it's just less than ideal. By the way, it doesn't do terribly at the pay-per-view. You get 373,000 buys here. That is down 30,000 from Backlash and 37,000 down from Judgment Day 01. But it was a different company a year prior. Still, 373,000 buys is solid. Unfortunately, though, it's the lowest buys for a pay-per-view until No Way Out 03, which is going to be headlined by Rock and Hogan. It does feel like, you know,
we lost momentum.
Yes.
We had no momentum. We had nothing rolling for us. Well, this is getting hot. And that was not what we were looking for, I can promise you. So again, you got to book carefully, and you got to book with a lot of egos in mind. You don't want to hurt people's feelings. You know, you got a pecking order that exists in every territory I ever worked in since the 70s. There's a pecking order. And we had all those masters to serve, and it was just some of the wrong pieces of the puzzle that were being put into play.
It was an interesting time in the business, though. Unfortunately, fans at home didn't love it. The readers of the Wrestling Observer gave it 38.8% thumbs up, 28.9% thumbs down, and 32.4% thumbs in the middle. I got to go thumbs in the middle. There was enough good stuff and enough nostalgia on here for me to think it was cool, but I can't say it's one of the best pay-per-views ever. Let's do some questions here. John wants to know, was there tension between Hogan and Taker after the match?
Not that I'm aware of. You know, I don't think, if both guys are being totally honest, that neither were going to be totally happy with the way the match was played out. But as far as having issues or things like that, if that did happen, it was done very discreetly. But I don't think it happened. I don't remember any. Look, they worked their ass off. That's the first thing for me. You worked your ass off. It just didn't get over.
Yambag Jones wants to know, who hated being split up more, Devon or Bubba?
Well, I don't know for the answer to that, but I will tell you that in the long run, it being in a single helped Bubba more than it did Devon. I thought that all that religious stuff and preaching and all that, Bubba thought he was Reverend T.D. Jakes for a while, that great charismatic black evangelist that's out of Texas. He's really, really good too. As a matter of fact, I catch it every now and then he's got TVs everywhere, but I just didn't charm me. The religious component just didn't work for me. But I think Bubba had a better run after the breakup than did Devon.
Brad wants to know, were you burnt out on Hell in a Cell matches by this point?
I think Hell in a Cell should be once a year in a story, and at least 12 months separation. And that'd be once a year. Duh. But yeah, it wasn't cool anymore. We had too much of it. And that's like having a first blood match every week. At some point in time, you don't give a shit the guy's bleeding or his guts are hanging out. So yeah, it was getting it was getting more challenging because the talents themselves were anxious because how do we top Foley's bump? Foley and Taker is going to, they set the mark. So, and quite frankly, there's no answer to that. You don't top that bump.
Middle Kingdom Wrestling, and you're going to love this question, says, do you have any advice on how to call a segment when something goes wrong or not as planned? For example, like the motorcycle not starting as mentioned before, is it better to not sell it or try to explain it away?
Well, you got to kind of feel it. It's a feel thing. And you got to try to salvage it as best you can and maintain the integrity on your talents as best you can. I did an ad lib, as we talked about earlier, on the motorcycles not starting. I wasn't sure that wasn't part of the new part of the deal. I didn't know, because that's, again, there's a blessing and a curse about having information on finishes and things like that. I'd rather not know, but sometimes it could be challenging on how you're going to fill the time in a positive way. It's not easy. It's not automatic.
Michael McClanahan says, what are JR's thoughts on this particular version of the Undertaker's character? Did Jim prefer the dead man gimmick or the evil biker gimmick?
Oh, the dead man gimmick by far. I didn't hate the evil biker thing, but I really just absolutely love the dead man gimmick and still do. It's one of my favorite all-time TV personas, in-ring personas, if you will. But I didn't hate, it was kind of a cool thing for the dead man, the biker deal. But it didn't take long for me to say, I wish we had the other guy back.
Well, we're going to be back before you know it. And we're going to be talking about all things Jake the Snake Roberts. We'll follow up with Ron Simmons. Then we're going to hit a watch along from June 9th, 1997. We'll make time for Beach Blast 92. And of course, another Ask JR Anything. Lots of fun stuff coming up here before you know it, Jim.
Yep.
You get all these shows early and ad free over at adfreeshows.com. But
as low as $9 a month, brother.
Come on now. And as soon as I hang up with you, Jim, and this is a real story, I'm running into my kitchen and I'm going to go ahead and season what I'm grilling tonight. And you know what seasoning I'm using, baby.
That's
I got it at jrsbbq.com. Tell us about it.
It's like a sword ding dong. You can't beat it. It's good stuff, man. Our business is, we're in the middle of barbecue season at jrsbbq.com. The seasoning is still kicking ass because it's so versatile. You can use it on just about, I haven't found anything that I've tried with our seasoning that didn't work. And I kind of judge it by that because I'm not a chef. I'm a weekend griller, so to speak. So yeah, that's some good stuff. Our JR's original barbecue sauce still our #1 seller. We got some real cool gift boxes and things like that. You know, there is a thing called Father's Day coming up. I wish my dad was here to celebrate it with me. And if you've got a father still alive, and I know, Conrad, you're blessed that you do.
Yes, sir.
It's a big deal, man. So, and food items are always a good gift, I think. We got those little Moscow Mule mugs and all kinds of stuff. So some real neat things that cost, as I said, cost nothing to look at jrsbbq.com. And the store's always open. So it's pretty cool. I'm, we're going to be in Vegas for several days coming up, and pay-per-views, Raws. Yeah, we're not going to do Raw there. I put that on TV. But doing pay-per-views and Dynamite, Rampage. We're going to be all over Vegas. So if you're coming to Vegas, you got a lot of options to see what we do in AEW. I think it's the most important week in the history of the AEW company coming up in Vegas. The stakes are high. People have high expectations. And we got some amazing matches that I'm sure are going to deliver. You know, I think Hangman Adam Page versus CM Punk is going to be a classic.
No doubt.
Going to be a classic. They're going to tell a great story. They're going to beat the shit out of each other. And may the best man win is all I can say. So I'm looking forward to going to Vegas because I've always said I follow the Arn Anderson theory, Conrad. My fat looks better brown than white.
Accurate.
Yeah. So I'm going to be seriously it's going to be fun. Great food. See a lot of fans, big houses, a lot of enthusiasm. it's a really cool opportunity for those of us that have invested the last 3 years or so in AEW. You know, I don't think we've made this announcement. You know, I signed an extension with AEW here not too long ago.
There you go. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate Tony Khan's confidence and his willingness to keep me on the team and contribute. So, you know, I'm not going to go we're not going a long time, but, you know, I think I signed about a year and a half or something like that to stay in the position I'm in. And I'm just really pleased that at 70, I still have a future. And at 70, I'm still loving what I do. And so anybody that says you're too old, fuck yourself. How's that? Yeah, go ahead. Just pull it out and fuck yourself. You're telling me what I should do, stay home and die? You're dictating that I don't deserve to continue this career. I want to get to 2024.
You will.
I really do. And that's 50 years. 50 years in the wrestling business. And not a lot of guys can say they were in the basic same job in a fickle, crazy ass, unpredictable business like pro wrestling for 50 years. And if the good Lord's looking down and cut me a break, get me to get to 50, I'll be the happiest guy in Norman, Oklahoma.
Well said, Mr. Ross. Glad to be with you. Glad to call you a friend. Glad to get this time to catch up with you every week, and can't wait to do it next week. Folks, don't miss it. We're talking Jake Roberts, one of the greatest minds in the history of the business, one of the most charismatic performers, and a promo like nobody else. And we're going to talk about it in long form next week right here on Grillin' JR with the voice of wrestling, Mr. Jim Ross.
And not to kill your clothes, Conrad, but there's been some, you know, I said some stuff that about Jake's health. You know, he's just breathing issues. He denies that he's probably as sickly as I portrayed him to be. And maybe he's right. He'll know better than me.
Sure.
But I know that his health has been challenging. He's got a breathing machine, oxygen he carries with him. To me, that's not normal. But he's dealing with it, and he's under great doctor's care. So I didn't want to start some bullshit about, you know, Jake, because it might affect his bookings. It might affect his. I was going to sign Jake for appearance, but I heard JR say he wasn't in good health, so maybe I'll pass on that. Don't pass on Jake Roberts for doing anything.
No.
Let it go. Put him to work, man. That's going to be the best medicine you can give the guy. Don't put him to work. And you'll be happy that you did. So I didn't intend, nor do I now, to stir the shit. But it was just an update on a guy that I respect that's changed his life a great deal. And I can only hope that he continues to change in a positive way and continues to reap the benefits. You know, a lot of guys are telling me, because the COVID restrictions are lessened, that they're making more money on the weekend conventions and signings and stuff than ever before. So it's like Starcast. More people are going to be at that Starcast than any other, I predict, than any other Starcast that you promoted, because people can travel, they can get to where you want to go. It's a good deal. So, but anyway, I just want to clear that up a little bit, but I appreciate the opportunity to do so. And Conrad, we had a good show today. I appreciate your preparedness and your work ethic. You're special, and I appreciate you.